Welcome to our JavaScript web course. In this video, we will learn about operators. We have arithmetic, comparison, and logical operators in JavaScript. I have several files to demonstrate these concepts, and what I have done, I have shown you the code on the web page in addition to having the code execute. I am using document.write purely to demonstrate these concepts along with the console. So to give you an example, looking at the source code, here in my opening and closing pre-tag, I have the variable declarations that I'll actually be using. And then in my JavaScript, I have those variable declarations again, plus I have my console statement and my document.write statement. So it's easy to see what's happening by looking at one file on the web page. So let's first look at arithmetic operators. These are the operators we use in traditional math: plus, minus, division, and multiplication. So in JavaScript, the plus sign indicates addition. However, we also know that that plus sign will concatenate if one of the operands, meaning the value on the right or the left of the operator, is a string. So here I have num1a equals 2, num1b equals 4, and I have sum1 is num1a plus num1b. So I have simple addition here. And in my document.write statement, I am showing you that the value is 6. Also in my console statement, you can see that result also. So this is pretty simple and straightforward. If we look at the next example, I have num2a equals 2, num2b equals 4. The 4 is inside quotations. And now I am trying to add these two values for these two variables. One value is a number, one value is a string, and what is happening is that we are concatenating because you cannot add a number and a string, so therefore JavaScript will join them. Notice it is putting the 2 and the 4 right next to each other, giving us a value of 24. I have mentioned in the past that JavaScript is what is called a loosely typed language, meaning we do not declare data types. The data type is inferred by how it is being used. So how this 4 is being used because it has the quotations around it, and because the plus sign can also concatenate, JavaScript is deciding that that is a string and we will join these two values. You will see later on that that will not be the case if we multiply or divide or subtract. We also have a value that can possibly be returned by JavaScript, which is capital N, lowercase a, capital N. That stands for not a number. If the value of one of the operands is not a number and we try to perform a calculation, that is what the result will be. We will probably see this again later in this course. The next example is subtraction. So here we have num4a equals 2, num4b equals 4. If we subtract them, we can see that we're getting a negative number. And we can also see that in the console here. Let's take a look at this example. We're subtracting these numbers again. However, in this case, the number 4 is inside quotations. And look what's happening. JavaScript is treating it like a number. Why? Well, because it doesn't know what else it can do with it. When we were adding those two values and the 4 was being looked at as a string, it would concatenate it because the plus sign is also the concatenation operator. So just be aware of that. That is the only time you will have a problem working with numbers is when you're adding them. Okay, so now we're going to multiply. And here we have num1a equals 2, num1b equals 4, and we're going to multiply them. And that's pretty straightforward. 2 times 4 is 8. In my second example, our number 4 has double quotes around it, so technically it is a string. However, when JavaScript multiplies them, it is going to give us the value of 8. So again, JavaScript is a loosely typed language, so it determines the data type based on how it is being used. And since there's nothing else it can do with multiplying these two numbers, it assumes that that 4 is a number. All right, so here we have an example. We have num3a equals 2, num3b equals, in quotations, abc. This is definitely a string. What happens if we try to multiply these two together? All right, now we're going to get NaN, not a number. Okay, JavaScript cannot multiply this stuff. So that's what it returns, not a number. So here we are dividing the numbers. We have num4a equals 2, num4b equals 4. We're dividing them, and we have a decimal 0.5. The division operator is a /. So that's pretty straightforward. In our next example, we have our number 4 in quotations. So technically it's a string. So what is JavaScript doing? Again, because it is a loosely typed language, it looks like a number, so we're going to treat it like a number, and it's going to give us the exact same result, which is 0.5. However, when we substitute a string value, ABC, in quotations, and we try to perform the division with these two numbers, JavaScript cannot do it, so the result is NaN, not a number. Now we will look at the comparison operators. There are 6 comparison operators. I am only explaining 2 of them. I will explain equals and not equals. We also have greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. They all work essentially the same way using the same syntax. All right, the equality operator, equal. Technically, it means are they the same, not necessarily equal. When you're working with numbers, you can use the word equal, but you're not always going to be working with numbers. So just think about we're comparing 2 things. Are they the same or not? So here I have num equals 2 and num1 equals 2. This second 2 has double quotes around it. So one is a string and one is not. I'm showing you the document.write statement here on the web page. Therefore, I couldn't put the real JavaScript up there because I'd get an error message, so I'm breaking it up with white space here. So the document.write statement. Here I'm concatenating a string message. Are num and num1 the same? Question mark. Concatenated with an expression. In JavaScript, just like math, you can use inner parentheses to group expressions for purposes of clarification. Sometimes it makes it easier to see what you're working with if you group these things that you're comparing. All right, so in parentheses, num equals num1. That's going to return either true or false. So here's the output of my document.write statement. And I also have a console.log statement, which we can see down here, and it's also evaluating to true. So I'm not necessarily using these in an application, I'm just explaining how they work. Now we have what is called the equality operator strict, 3 equal signs. This is not only comparing the physical values of the 2 variables, it is also comparing the data type. Notice that it returns false, because while these 2 variable values look alike, they are not the same data type. We also have the inequality operator, and that's an exclamation point followed by an equal sign. And that's saying, are they not the same or are they not equal? Okay, so now we have a little bit of reverse logic. So if they're not the same or if they're not equal, it's going to return true. Okay, if they are the same, then it's going to return false. So here I have num4 equals 2, num5 equals 2 in quotations, And the expression I'm evaluating here in my parentheses, num4 not equal to num5, is that going to return true or false? Well, we've already determined that they are the same. Now we're testing, are they not the same? So therefore, testing that they're not the same is going to return false. Watch this operator because it kind of has a little bit of a reverse logic to it. They are the same, so testing for inequality will return false. However, if we test for the inequality strict operator using exclamation point equal equal, now it's going to return true because now they're technically not the same. Because now we're testing for data types, so now that expression will return true. The equality, non-equality can be used with other values besides numbers. We now are looking at the logical operators, of which there are 3, and, or, not. These are typically used in conjunction with comparison operators, so we have 2 clauses or more that we're evaluating here. So again, I'm using the document.write statement in the web page, so I have spaces here so it's not being executed. And notice that I have several sets of inner parentheses. So here I have my variable num equals 0, num1 equals 1. 1 has quotations around it. So I'm evaluating, are they both true? Are both of these conditions true? So this is using the AND logical operator, which is represented by a double ampersand here. So if the condition on the left is true and the condition on the right is true, this expression will evaluate to true. So here I have num equals 0, which we see it is. Num1 equals 1, which it is, even though it's a string, it's still 1, it's an equal equal. So therefore, this expression will return true. So this is an example where using these inner parentheses works well to help you keep track of what you're working with here in your expression. If I were to use this same code working with the strict equality operator equal equal equal, then both conditions would not be true. Only one condition would be true. Therefore, this expression would return false. So when you're working with the AND logical operator, the condition on the right and the condition on the left have to be true. And you can have more than 2 conditions. You can have several. The OR logical operator is indicated with 2 straight lines. They are found right below the backspace key. So here I have num4 equals 0, num5 equals 1. 1 is a string, it's in quotes. I'm evaluating these expressions. When you're working with an OR logical operator, only one of the expressions has to evaluate to true, not both. All right, so here I have num4 greater than 1. Notice I'm using the greater than comparison operator. All right, num4 equals 0. Okay, so it's not greater than 1. So therefore, this is going to return false. I also have num5 equals 1. Well, we have num5 equals 1. It's a string. However, it's not a strict comparison. Therefore, it will return true. Therefore, this whole expression returns true. Finally, we have the not operator indicated by the exclamation point. So here I have let num6 equals 1. The 1 is a string. In my expression, notice the syntax for this. I have the not operator outside of the expression. The expression is num6 greater than 1. Okay, and it is not. Num6 equals 1. It's not greater than 1. Inside num6 greater than 1 would return false. However, because we're putting a not in front of it, so again, we kind of have this reverse logic here. So if it's not true, then essentially it returns true. So we're asking, is this not true? Correct, it is not true. So therefore it returns true. Finally, I would like to talk about the add and assign operator, which is plus equal. Might also be referred to as the addition assignment operator. Here I have let num equals 200. If I wanted to add 100 to that value of num, I can say num equals num plus 100. All right, now that's well and good, and it's pretty straightforward. However, this is a shortcut. So now I'm doing it again. Let num2 equal 200, num2 plus equals 100. Rather than repeating the name of the variable, we have plus equals, meaning I'm adding 100 to that variable, so the new value of num2 would be 300. This comes in very handy when working with strings. You may hear the expression building a string. So if you wanted to set up a variable and throughout your application add messages to that variable, you can do this using this add and assign operator.